behind me in all the different ways. And today we're actually going to work on the Rippling Choices quilt block that is the foundation paper piece. So you can see that this is the standard size for all of the standard quilts that we've got, but this is the size for the foundation paper piecing quilt. So the Live Well, Live Strong quilt pattern is available to purchase at Stitches Quilting, and you have all the instructions for all the sizes of the quilt. And right now it also includes the foundation paper piecing quilt size too. So we are making, so today the quilt block that I'm working on is for this quilt right here. So it's that quilt block right there. So it's Choices. And the quilt has 26 quilt blocks about health and wellness for women. Hello, Delinda. Hi, Liz. And this week's quilt block has been all about choices and about how good choices in our lives can help us have additional health and wellness in terms of how we are going from day to day and for generations to come and just in our lives in general. So let's go ahead and get started on this. You are going to print off, if you're making the, hello Amanda from Louisiana. We have actually got some snow and wind today here. So I don't know about you guys and what your weather is like. So the Choices quilt block pattern is like this, and it is printed off on some newsprint paper. I am just giving you as an illustration so you can see what it looks like. It comes in 3 different sections. So there's a section A, a section B, and a section C. So I have pre-sewn some of these sections for you today because I didn't want our video to be too long. And so let me go ahead and show you. This is section A, and really we've done lots of these, and where I have just sewn it from actually A1, AB2, A2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and all the way down to just have this really nice, sharp-looking little section. And this is section B. So we have these two sewn together, and this is my section C. So, and we always remember, I always use a pencil, and I write down what fabrics are on this quilt block. So you can see the fabrics right here. And then I just go ahead and I use a little key thing here, and I put the capital letter of the last fabric I'm using. So white, blueberry is that brighter blue, denim, navy, and white and white. I know that I can track my fabrics with that little key section right there. Okay, let me go ahead and switch the camera so you guys can see my work surface. And let's go ahead and get to work on stitching this. So once again, this is foundation paper piecing. So we are stitching on paper. I'm using like a 2.0 stitch length, so a really thin stitch length. And we are going to work with this section C right here. So, and I have with me, actually, why don't we, real fast, sew these 2 sections together so that we can see this come together. And then we'll come back and sew this other section. So I've got these sitting here together. I pre-sewed these before the video, and I'm going to match them up with the seam allowances matching right there. So, and you can see I've got on the pattern a dashed line where I'm going to stitch on for that 1/4 inch seam on both sides of the actual patterned paper. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this a good match as we're doing this right here, and I'm just kind of peeking at it. And I'm going to make sure those are lined up just right. And when I do this, I go ahead and use these little teeny tiny sewing pins right here. Oh my gosh, am I doing that backwards? Yes. I was like pushing it into my finger instead of the fabric. That is so funny. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to just go ahead and match these up. And then I'm going to stitch along this 1/4 inch seam with that dashed line. So any dashed line on the paper pieces is where you stitch. So I'm going to put this in my sewing machine. I've got lots of little layers to stitch through here, but I think that will work. So let's go ahead and lay this down, and we're doing that 2.0. And I am mainly reinforcing this where I am matching up fabric points or seam allowances and making sure I've got a good stitch length in there. Okay, here we go. Let's bring that up. So now you can see I've got I went ahead and I stitched across. Let's go ahead and open this up, and we will see the choice quilt block. So the choice quilt block is like dropping a pebble in a pool of water and the rippling effect of the water as it goes out. And that's kind of how like our choices are in life. We make one choice and it ripples out and affects other different aspects of our lives and even generations to come, or whatever that might be. So let's go ahead and build out this section right here. This is section C. It's actually repeating what I already did right there, but this way you guys can see me do it. Okay, we're starting out with a white section. So section C, C1, I'm going to sew up next to section C2. So on my little code here, section C1 is white. So I'm going to take my white fabric and I'm going to put it on the back. It's going to touch the back of the paper with the back of the fabric. And let's go ahead and fold this over. I'm going to use my little index card, and we're going to fold over on this dashed line between C1 and C2 right there. And we're going to go ahead and fold this over. Okay, so you guys, what kind of choices have you had this last week? You guys will remember that Luke has his own apartment in some independent living, and he is doing really great. He'll be here today at the house to get ready for his work at the nursing home. He'll come home from his day program, and then I will take him to his work. Okay, C1 is white, C2 is blueberry. That blue fabric right here, I put them right sides together, and then I match up my seam allowance right along the edge there. We're going to put this underneath the sewing machine and stitch that at that 2.0 stitch length. That is really tiny, so it kind of perforates the paper. Okay, let's go ahead and take our iron. We are using an iron that is a dry iron, so we don't want to use an iron that has any kind of water or any kind of steam to it. And we are also, oops, I've got like a little piece of thread coming through my seams right there. Do you see that? I'm going to see if I can pull that through. Oh, let's see here. Let's go ahead and pull that out. There we go. Okay, so now that's not coming through. So I'm going to use my dry little hot iron to go ahead and press that. You definitely want a hot iron. I like using this one online when I'm doing videos because it's smaller and I won't topple it over. Okay, so I'm going to use my little piece of cardstock right here. I'm going to lay this up against the stitching line between C2 and C3 to kind of get a good fold here so I can see where I should trim off my threads. So on this side it looks like this. On this side I have folded this back right along there. So I'm going to put this down. I'm going to use my small ruler. You can use any ruler. I just find it handy to do that. And I'm going to trim my 1/4 inch seam allowance right there. So you can see right here, I've got this folded back, and there's my 1/4 inch seam allowance, approximately. These are not that wide, so we don't have to make it too big there. Okay, let's go ahead. Our next color is denim. Yes, Luke is doing so good, and you know, this is the kind of decision and choice that we made in our lives right now for him that is going to actually affect his life and his ability to have independence and grow, and also affect him to have confidence while he's starting that endeavor in life, and that I can kind of guide him along that way. I want to show you guys here on this stitching line that on the pattern, you can see that we're going to sew the white sections over here. You can start and stop your stitching just right here at these on the dashed line, or you can go over just slightly over into that white area, whichever way you want to do that. Let's go ahead and open this up and press that. Good dry press right there for our foundation paper piecing. We don't want to mutate our paper as we're doing that. Once again, I'm going to fold back my paper on that stitching line between C3 and C4, between denim and navy. So there's an N there for navy. So I've got that folded where my stitching line is. I'm going to take this down and trim my excess fabric off. I just use a nice long strip of fabric so that then I have lots of space to add that on. Here's my excess 1/4 inch seam right there. I'm going to add my navy blue fabric right along here, and that's going to be my last color. Let's go ahead And I have it right sides together on the back of the paper. So you guys, there's lots of choices that we make throughout our lives. For example, if we choose to have education in our lives, or if we choose to go to college, that will affect us, but it will also affect our children or our grandchildren and what they feel like they can actually do. So making decisions for ourselves also helps generations to come and generations of people that we love. And it can affect our families. So we want to be intuitive and be deliberate with our choices, as we know that it will affect other people. I am now going to go ahead and trim this section so it looks a little bit more like this triangle. So let's get our excess fabric off. Once again, I don't want to trim off that solid black line. I want to see where the exact edge is of my 1/4 inch seam on these blocks. So you can see, I can still see that little black line as I've trimmed that off. Well, I'm going to go over here and trim this one over here. Every so often I do trim off that little line. Okay, now we're going to fold this back. So you can see what that looks like now. We're going to fold this back and we're going to trim right inside of here. So let's go ahead and rip our paper just a tiny bit where our stitching came over into this other white side. So let's go ahead and fold that back and make a little tear. I'm going to fold it on that stitching line, and I'm going to get my 1/4 inch of a seam right here on this side. And let's trim the bottom of this section right here. And then you'll see it starts looking like a triangle now. So normally when you have this fabric kind of hanging off, it doesn't quite get its shape until we do some of our trimming. And I love the trimming portion of it. So choices are great for what we're doing. You know, with foundation paper piecing, it might be just a little bit fidgety to do this, but boy, it sure is fun to get these precise little pieces. And it's amazing what you can actually, once you learn the skill, what you can actually foundation paper piece after that. I have just some white pieces of fabric. These are 2 white triangles that go on either side. I'm going to use a basic white piece right here and line that up. And let's go ahead and stitch that down, and we're going to have our little triangle finished. So you can go ahead and see here. And I love how precise each one of these little blocks are. So anyways, other choices, intentional choices that we can make throughout our day is not to be discouraged when we're feeling discouraged, not to feel overwhelmed and try to bring down the overwhelm that we might feel in different situations. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess fabric here, right like this, and then use this piece of white fabric over on the other side. Okay, so you can see that right here. Let's go ahead and go right over right there, and we're going to go ahead and stitch that on the top of the paper. So I've got my 1/4 inch fabric. I'm using less of a 1/4 inch, but these are pretty tiny blocks, so whatever you use actually works. So you just need to make sure you've got fabric there to hold down onto. So, and I do use a less than that. So you guys, what are some other great choices that we can make in our lives that can benefit our family? Oh, this says I've gotta, oh, I broke my needle, you guys. That is too crazy. Let's go ahead and turn off my sewing machine. What are some other great choices that we can make in our lives that can impact our personal lives for the better and can impact our family's lives or the lives of others? There are just so many different choices that we can have in our lives that go on. So let's go ahead and let me get my sewing machine restarted here, because I actually it just went, my needle went down in the wrong spot. And so there we go. I've got that all trimmed up and ready. I've got to change my needle, so just a minute, guys. So hang on. Let me go ahead and see if I can finger this. Oh, I have a hard time. I'm going to pull my light. See my little light right there? And let me grab let's see if I have a screwdriver in here. I do. Okay, what do you guys keep in the back of your sewing machines? I am starting to keep some Band-Aids in there for whenever myself or some employees might actually, knock their finger. I also like to put my little needles in a soda pop can or a sharps container if possible. Let me put on my glasses while I put this needle in here. These are denim needles. I keep denim needles in the back of my sewing machine for when I'm going through lots of layers of fabric. And let's see, I have got some universal needles. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a universal needle right here. And we're going to slip that in for right now. What is your favorite needle that you like to use when you're quilting or sewing? Typically quilters, when we're just piecing together fabrics, an 80-12 is usually a good needle to use. In whatever brand you have that you're working with, that you are comfortable and is accessible for you to purchase. So let me go ahead and trim my thread and thread that needle right here. So here we go. Okay, so we also want to make sure that when we feel anxiety, when we've got choices to make, that we go ahead and let that anxiety try to bring it down and try to go ahead and figure out how to manage that anxiety, because sometimes we get anxious about choices we have to make, or big tasks that we need to do, and what we want to do is go ahead and break our choices down into smaller pieces or be intentional in our choices so we can have more confidence with what we're doing. And that is something that can help us along the way. Okay, there we go. I got that fixed. You keep a few pieces of candy, Belle. I like that idea, especially around Valentine's Day. Now, I'm going to make sure my needle is on the right stitch. Here we go. Okay. Oh, it says I have my bobbin thread is low. So let me go ahead and do that. You know what? I know what I did is whenever it said low bobbin thread, I think on my screen on my sewing machine, I then clicked a different button that changed my the thread type I was doing, where it was all the way over on the left side, and that's what broke my needle. I can remember now what I'm doing. Okay, let's go ahead and put this in here, and I'm going to stitch on this paper. It's going to perforate it just slightly when we go ahead and pull these papers all the way out. We've got a worksheet for the Choices quilt block right here, and anyways, so it's just a great thing. So we want to make sure that when we make choices, that we're making choices that are consistent with our value system, that we're kind of not reacting knee-jerk, making choices in our lives, even with the small ones, that we kind of make sure that we're going to make something that's consistent with our belief system, with our values, with our goals, and we want to research information, look at the pros and the cons of every situation, and try to make a choice that's intentional rather than just knee-jerk. Okay, let's go ahead and put this last piece on here, and we're going to go ahead and piece that together, and we will be done with the Choices teeny tiny foundation paper piecing quilt block. So if you would like to get this pattern, it's available. It's the Live Well, Live Strong quilt pattern, available at Stitches Quilting. It is available the pattern has availabilities where you can purchase it and actually make it as a regular quilt size, or it also comes complimentary with the foundation paper piecing pattern too, so that you kind of can experiment and make different versions. Over here, I would go ahead and press this really good. And after pressing it, you're going to find that the papers just seem kind of awkward, and they don't necessarily want to stay flat. But in order to keep it flat, I go ahead and lay usually my grid over there, and I might put something heavy on top of it and let it cool naturally. But look at how beautiful those pieces came out. They're just absolutely identical, and that's what's so wonderful about foundation paper piecing. And I cannot wait to get this framed, quilted, and done up and have it hanging just beautifully in my home. So you can see those papers. I keep all the papers in it until we have that whole top together and we start picking out those papers. So anyways, you guys, it's so good to see you. This was all about the Rippling Choices quilt block for the Live Well, Live Strong quilt. So we'll see you guys on Friday And on Friday, we are actually going to be working on the safety quilt block and how we can keep our lives safe, and how safety in our lives can actually, by protecting safety in our lives, it can actually create additional health and wellness for ourselves. So anyways, safety is our next quilt block. We will make that on Friday at noon. It's so good to see you guys. I will chat with you a little bit later. Have fun. Bye-bye.